Hi, I'm Chris with Afflictor Broadheads. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about two of the biggest reasons that crossbows fail or blow up. And this can be a hot topic because I'm going to cut right to the chase here, and I'm going to say, although there can be manufacturing issues that cause a crossbow to fail. Maybe there's a burr on a cam, maybe there was a bad glass pour, maybe someone or a dealer or whoever assembled things wrong, or there's something loose. Any of that can always happen, but it is rarer compared to these two major reasons. And the first reason is the wrong nock. So it is imperative that you are shooting the right nock for your crossbow. And there's tons of different nocks. There's flat nocks, there's moons, there's half moons, there's proprietary nocks. They all are different, and they all are different for a reason. The nock is designed to engage the string completely when you have that crossbow at full draw and it is getting ready to shoot. So you want to make sure that you have the right nock. So a lot of times people want to improve the bolts, so they go to a custom bolt maker and they get, something made specifically for what they are wanting for their crossbow, but they're still not using the right nock. And why is this such an issue? And why is it an issue now when it wasn't an issue before? It seemed like, we didn't have these problems, just several years ago. Well, the first reason and the biggest reason is that we have decreased the ATA, the axle to axle, so tight on some of these crossbows. I mean, they are really narrow. Where before we were looking at, these great, big, beautiful, long limbs. And so what that does is, if you can imagine, when you are cocking a crossbow with long limbs, you come back, you have a nice wide angle at this base. So for your nock to string engagement, there's a lot of room there. You can really get good contact. But the second you shrink that ATA down at the front of your crossbow and you bring that back, what do you got? You got this tight little tiny V there. And so you really need to make sure that you're coming into full contact with that nock. And if you have the wrong nock, you won't even get close. You're just going to grab a little bit of the edges, and that essentially is a dry fire. And the other issue that is plagued by crossbows is that bolt not being fully seated all the way back. This is the biggest thing that I hear over and over again and see over and over again, is that it's not fully seated against that. And the reason for that is you can actually have your bolt back, you can have disengaged the dry fire mechanism and still have just a touch of room between your nock and your string and not have the proper seating. This is imperative because what happens is you're essentially causing a type of dry fire, and over time, maybe it's right away, maybe it's later on, you're eventually going to wear things down where something is going to fail. So it is imperative that when you put your bolt on the rail and you slide it back, and you've probably watched the dry fire mechanism disengage, you want to make sure that you're pulling back on that arrow, that bolt, a little bit on the rail to make sure that it is fully seated. You also want to make sure that you have the right fletching down into the groove the right way too, because otherwise your nock isn't engaging the string at all, but it may still allow your anti-dry fire mechanism to say, oh, there's a bolt in here, we're okay to go, but you have not had the proper contact with your string. That is also something that happens. So you need to be very careful of how you are loading your bolt, how it is coming back, and making sure that it's fully seated. Now, you're going to want to check this, especially if you are, say you are walking a long way to where you're going to hunt, and so you're walking through the woods, you've already cocked your crossbow, it's already loaded. As you walk, things can happen. So you want to make sure that before you shoot, once you get into your stand, your blind, whatever, that you've double checked, get your finger on that bolt, give it a push back, make sure that it is completely seated every single time. And one other thing that I do want to include in this that can actually cause a problem and people don't really think about it is making sure that your rail is lubed. So if you have a crossbow that's using a full rail as a guide for your bolt, you want to make sure that it is properly lubed. Otherwise, what happens is that string goes down the rail. It causes chatter. So instead of having this nice, smooth release when you pull the trigger, that string is actually chattering its way down there. So it can cause issues as well, and definitely will cause a lot more wear and tear on your crossbow. So when you think about issues, and if you're worried about crossbows failing because they are blowing up, hate to say it, but most of the time it is user error. And so you want to make sure that you are using the right nock and that your bolt is fully seated every time.